Great. Welcome to another exciting episode of BSC Se Kya Hoga, the Science Unlocked podcast series as part of the Monday morning podcast series as such. Today's guest is someone who took a road that most Indian families would have called risky. She started with a BTech in telecommunications, looked at the path laid out in front of her and chose a completely different one. So over the last 11 years, Shruthi Manjula Mohan has worked at the intersection of journalism, science communication, technology, and public policy. She's reported from 36 Indian districts and three countries. She has led programs for the WHO and YouTube Health. She's a fact checking trainer at the Google News Initiative, a UNESCO ambassador, and a US government state alumni. Today, she works as a strategic communications and advocacy officer at the Center for Chronic Disease Control and the NIHR Global Health Research Center, championing the long term impact of chronic disease in some of the world's most undeserved populations. She is a trained classical dancer, a musician, speaks five languages, and is learning sign language. She did not follow the safe path; she followed the meaningful one. So it's my privilege to welcome Shruthi Manjula Mohan to Science Unlocked. Warm welcome to you, Shruti. Any welcome words before we start off?
Sir, good afternoon. Firstly, thank you so much for considering this journey worthy enough to be spoken of. I'm really grateful and happy to be a part of this conversation. So, firstly, thank you and really wish you well. And I hope you get to meet a lot of people and probably know their stories from their, in their own voices and words. So, good luck to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Shruti. Privilege is mine. So we have five themes today. Shruti will cover your origin story. We look at your career deep dive, the real work which you did. We'll try to do some myth busting in terms of parental objections. Create a roadmap in terms of actionable steps, and finally give some homework to the parents and students. That's the last one. So we'll start with the origin story. You did a BTech in telecommunications, Shruti, and that is not where I think most people expect a science communicator story to begin. So if you can take us back to that moment when you realized engineering was not your path, what were you feeling, and what did the people around you say, Shruti?
Right. So, beautiful question. Firstly, so I think I always loved science as a subject, but probably was because the larger mainstream or the world that I come from, which is very strict and academic in that nature, and what you do and what the society says eventually really mattered. So my father is an engineer, so an engineer in the army. So he, of course, wanted his daughter to follow suits and become an engineer also. But I did not have a problem with that back then because I think I was exposed to only engineering or doctor as two professions, or maybe even join the defense forces. These were the only three options that I was given with, and I thought maybe engineering is the best one. But at the back of my mind, I always knew that I think public speaking and just speaking, because I enjoy speaking as a person and I really like interacting with people and probably pecking questions with them. I'm somebody who has an endless list of questions. So my profession and my what makes my heart happy did not go very well together. And I probably did not know about it too.
Sure.
So back then, when someone said, "Hey, engineering seems like the best option," and I did also score well in my 12th standards. So, of course, engineering was the best way forward. And I did fall into that direction and I did follow the route that was given to me. But over the time that I was there, I did realize that, and in that time, I was also going through the grief of losing my younger sister. So both the grief and the academic failure came together, and I was not very, I was still young. I was 17, 18 years old, and I did not have the backing of my parents too, because they themselves were grieving differently. So I had to pick myself up and gather the courage to go back to college and do well, be with my friends who are scoring really well in spite of not putting in that much of hard work that I was at that time. And it kept reminding me that something's not fitting very well. And I'm somebody who grew up through my school as a very pampered and a loved student of my teachers, and that didn't happen in my college. So this kind of an imbalance and this discomfort was very triggering me. But at the same time, my parents, I'm grateful to them because they never They understood that I was going through that struggling phase, and they never pointed out at my marks or how many backlogs, which were a lot of them at that time, bothered them. So there was a very indifferent nature to what I might do in the future. But obviously, because I'm studying engineering, they expected me to be an engineer. But during this time, I think the book fanatic, or the life that I had as a teenager, which is reading a lot of books, came back, and I found a lot of peace and myself in books.
Right.
So that's when I started reading more books. I started feeling like I want to write about these things, the things that I'm feeling, the things that I'm going through, the body image issues, the kind of relationships, and all of these very teenage writing. And that time, fortunately, in my college, which is a very academic, technical, it's an engineering college, of course, a small opportunity came wherein I could become the editor of my college magazine. So becoming an editor in a college magazine which teaches science, it fit in all the things that I thought I might want to do fit in there. And it was a very small role. It basically was about collecting journals, collecting very science related developments that were happening inside the college and telling it to the outside world through a magazine. And I totally enjoyed doing all of that. I was super enthusiastic. I think I would bunk my classes otherwise, but for all the editorial meetings, I would be a very enthu cutlet. So it all started from there. So though as much as I say that my college did not help me pursue a engineering career, but it did help me in finding what my heart beats for, and I'm eternally grateful to them. I've had the most recent interaction with them now in the last 1 month, and I see how life has come a full circle now for me.
Lovely, Shruti. Thanks so much. Two things struck me. One thing is the backlogs. It's something which, at that point of time, we used to actually feel very, very guilty that we have actually failed subjects, and I think that's become pretty normal now. That's a new norm.
Right.
Secondly, I think what you just said in terms of one of the questions which I actually struggle getting answers are the traits. What are the traits of a typical 17-year-old or a 16-year-old that parents can actually see and then actually advise them in terms of what subjects they can actually take. And with you, I think your college played a pretty good role, even though you didn't really like the subject as such. You actually went on to start writing over there, which kind of became your career as such now. So, lovely to start off with, Shruti. Again, some of these questions you might have actually answered, but let me just ask them. And if you want to add anything more than welcome. So, you made a choice that most Indian families would have called risky, walking away from a technical degree to chase journalism and science communication. So, was there a BSc say kya hoga moment in your life, or a dinner table conversation where someone questioned what you were doing with your life, Shruti?
So it has happened so many times. And it's not one conversation. I think it's a yearly, everyday conversation. So I think, in summary of maybe the 365 conversations that I could have had, it's been very harsh because my father is from the army. He's a typical military man from the Madras Engineering Regiment. Very critical, very disciplined, very dominating in that sense, which all fathers are in their own ways towards their children. So there was never an aha moment as much as it is ja simran ji le apni zindagi kinds, wherein they it was not simran, it were other words. They're like, go do whatever the hell you want to do, we're done with you, kind of a reaction. But in those reaction, what I understood is that as a parent, my father was scared for me that what if I did not have my academic qualifications help me in my career, what is it that I'm going to do, right? Which is, he did not want for me to fail, and he was scared of how I'm going to manage my finances. What is he going to feel, that what did he do to his daughter, like did he really guide her well or not? There was a underlying fear that as parents, both my parents were dealing with. And I probably had to just have a comfortable conversation with them and tell them that I understand your fears. I know that after studying 4 years of engineering, the most but obvious choice would be pursue a career in engineering. You may think that my 4 years are lost, but
Mm.
let me tell you that my 4 years are not lost. I'm going to make something out of this.
Mm.
Just trust me.
Yeah.
And of course, I don't know, they didn't have a lot of options. They had to say yes to the process of trusting. And my parents did give me some years to explore. And during that time, they were very patient with me. I wasn't earning well. I wasn't working with reputed names. My office and my house were, extremely apart in geographically, and I had to commute, spend a lot of hours in traveling, come home exhausted, not physically, emotionally show up for them. I went through all of it, and during this time, they were genuinely very, very patient with me. And they, I think, over the time of seeing my, I think, commitment, which was about 6, 7 days of working in a week. So
Mm.
I remember my early or mid 20s for that matter being a completely booked schedule, and I would be super happy about it, but it of course had its own cons in its way, and they were very patient about it. So the aha moment came in bits and parts. I did have my moments of self doubt, and I did have to show up better for myself,
Mm.
but I would say it happened over time. It was never one particular moment.
Perfect. Perfect. I think I don't know whether it's generation, Shruti. In my parents were actually patient. I took around two to 3 years to actually get to my first job, and did a lot of experimentation. Went through a lot of courses before I went on. I think
Mm.
maybe that's aspect, and I want your thoughts around it. Our parents nowadays more competitive than before, and insist on getting their children settled in a completely planned way.
Absolutely not. So I think today's parents are evolved with the children in so many ways. Of course, there's always scope for improvement. There's always what they could have done better. And even as parents, I think parents are pretty critical towards each other. I think especially mothers get the most of the credit in a different way, and fathers get the discipline and the career kind of blames, and mothers get the health and the upbringing, the nature, and mostly is the soft skills the mothers take. So I think parents are also dealing with bringing up their children in the best possible way, and they also go through their moments of, am I doing enough for my child? So
Mm.
having said that, I think in today's there is I would say, like, if we divide the current generation or the generations that have gone by, I think my generation has been pretty crazy in the way that they've explored careers. So today's generation might be hearing about AI, but I think my generation are people who've worked on AI, who've worked on different kinds of LMS systems. They know the technology behind it. They are the early generation in that sense, and the same applies for the digital health, that is the health the movements that we're seeing around us, or technological movements, software, mobile, Wi-Fi, internet, and you can name it. So my generation in that way has seen a lot of I don't know, worldly movements in which we've seen COVID, we've seen multiple extremes in that sense. So I think the parents with us have become more resilient, and they've set a very beautiful benchmark for the upcoming parents in
Mm.
that way.
Sure.
So I think the parents are catching up. Of course, there's a lot to do, but there's no end to this criticism. But I would like to take a moment to appreciate all the parents who've really been with their children during this
Sure.
phase.
Sure. Sure, Shruti. Lovely. Who were the mentors or anchoring figures in your life and during that kind of transition? Was it your parents or teachers or peers or friends who believed in this path before you fully believed it in yourself, or did you have to find that conviction entirely on your own, Shruti?
Absolutely not, sir. It is never one person. I would never take the credit for whatever that I've done. I think I have been immensely grateful for having the kind of mentors and teachers that I've had, even as a child, even as a student, a teenager. I think if there's anybody that I want to blindly give all my credits of all the growth that I've had, it's definitely my teachers and mentors. I can name teachers since my eighth standard, seventh standard, my mass PT teacher, my tuition teacher, and of course all the mentors that I had the great fortune of working with over my The initial years, because especially as somebody who did not come from journalism background, I think they've really played their part in this journey. To name a few of them, I would say there's a very beautiful journalist called Miss Vasanti Hariprakash. She's transformed a lot of lives across the country, and she's somebody who immediately brings a smile on your face, and she does that magic to me too. She's been my Guruji, Guruma, something that I so fondly call her. She's played both the roles of a mother and a mentor very beautifully. So a lot of that credit of introducing me to journalism and the whataboutery of it, the direction, the kind of beats that I must be writing on, following on, representing on, and the kind of questions that I need to ask the people that I meet, the kind of behavior, temperament that you should have when you talk to people who are both at your level, above and below, and the kind of acumen, the kind of kindness, or the kind of presence that you need to show up as a journalist, something that I think most institutions, journalism institutions might skip. I think I learned it from her. And my first editor, Mr. Saurav Roy, I think these two people have really influenced me. At the same time, I think as a young teenager, as a young 20-year-old, I had the fortune of being trained on public speaking by Mr. Ian Faria, somebody whom, when I met him, I'm very sure I was grieving at the same time in a phase to discover who I am actually. And sometimes learnings don't come in black and white. It's the gray area. Sometimes even in the gray area, you probably might be like a orange person in a gray area and you do not fit in. And as long as if you're left in that gray area for a while, eventually you'll start picking the colors and you'll camouflage with the gray. So I'm saying I'm orange, and the areas that I was put through is gray by Mr. Ian Faria. And everything that I've picked up by being with the community, by being with everyone around for a quite a number of years, really helped me shape my personality and how I see the world around. So I would credit all these three people. But of course, the list is endless, like I said. But at the top of my mind, I would want to credit these three people for being really influential in my life.
Great, Shruti. What would be your advice to youngsters, right? In someone at the age of 17, they wouldn't really know the words mentor so much. What would be your advice in terms of looking out to people and getting insights from them?
Yeah. Sir, I think we only listen or hear or obey people that we love and respect. So I think firstly it starts from there. I think even before you start loving others, you also have to have that loving. You need to believe in love. You need to believe in respect to be able to give it to others. And when you see that in people, learning can come from any sides, and it can really shape you in whatever form. So firstly, I would say for teenagers who also are quite excited, quite like they're introduced to teenage, the adrenaline, that kind of hormones, everything, is to first believe in your heroes, trust them, respect them enough to begin with. Then thereafter comes following them, obeying them, listening to them, taking the bits that are most useful for you. Of course, asking them questions, building a very healthy to and fro, give and take kind of a relationship with your mentors. And that mentor can be anybody. There is no not someone older, not someone experienced, not someone of a certain gender, not someone who's making certain money, not someone who's from a certain profession or education. I don't think any of those things matter. Whoever that you love and respect is your mentor. And that person can really shape you. So choose your mentors wisely, but also do not forget that these are fundamentals of the mentorship. My grandmother has been my great mentor. Someone who hasn't had the kind of qualification or the freedom that I've had, but there is no way that I would not take her opinion before doing anything. So and the same goes to every other person that I've interacted. I don't think I've had these filters ever. Those learnings can come from anywhere. And as long as you are willing to learn and you are willing to not see yourself as the ultimate great personality, but are willing to make changes, make amends within yourself, and are looking for self growth, I think the mentorship can come from any sides.
Sure. Great advice, Shruti. So let's move to the career deep dive, your real work. So, couple of questions. First one is around, I think WHO. You led programs for WHO and YouTube Health. You
Yes.
trained journalists for Google News Initiative. Again, reported from 36 Indian districts. And today, work with a scientific research organization focused on health research and advocacy in chronic disease control. So, for a student listening, can you walk us through a science communicator? What a science communicator actually does on a Tuesday morning? What does the work look like day to day?
I'm happy that it's not a Monday morning because Monday mornings are often clouded with all the pending work. So on a Tuesday morning, I think as science communicators, our jobs are very dynamic in nature because there's so many things that are happening across the world. India also most definitely that you know one day is same. Every day there's a different agenda. Every day there's a different priority. So sometimes there is a backlog, but at the same time there are new developments that have happened in the blink of an eye, and also because we're working across time zones. So we are not only working for the Indian time zone. Sometimes we are come back home and we get a lot of information that have happened in the other part of the country, and that's how it is always going to be as a science communicator. So it is a very robust, dynamic, and a very all the time charged space in that sense, but it is mostly internal in that way. It is both a pros and con of the industry, that a lot of developments happen within the network, the ecosystem. So
Yeah.
as our job becomes a little bit more happening, because we are able to translate this internal information to the outside world in the best possible way. And
Mm.
today, because we come from the digital era, there are a lot of ways in which you can explore to process this information that you have either in text or announcements or pictures and videos in the best possible way for the people on the internet. So it's a mixture of all of these things. And the world of science communication, I think, I mean, I have been using it only say since the last 5 years, but I would be very silly to say that it's a recent word. It is a very old word, a very old profession, because all possible science developments that have happened across the world, only when it's communicated to the world has it reached the world. So the science communication was happening all this while without us labeling this as a career,
Mm.
as a potential as a potential viable career for that matter,
Mm.
right? So it's been there for a while. It is only probably taken recognition now, and I've only been starting to use it only recently.
Sure. Sure. How is the learning path? I mean, after your engineering, what are kind of courses, or can you actually, for a student who actually is interested in a science communicator kind of a career pathing as such, can you define the learning path which you have taken?
So, I think firstly, I wrote a lot. I wrote a lot on random topics. I would one day write on body positivity, another day write on stars, one day write about my interaction with somebody, one day write about some flowers I picked up. So I would give myself random prompts,
Mm.
something that we do in today's era with ChatGPT. Just throw
Mm.
yourself a word and see how do you react. And that's something that I enjoyed doing back then. And of course, then Instagram was a very new and a very explorative platform, and I totally enjoyed writing on Instagram, Blogger, and created a blog of my own on Medium at that point. But apart from this, I think I was also very hungry for learning,
Mm.
which meant that I would sign up for all possible courses, fellowships, all possible, whether it would really. I basically came from the school of thought that when you apply uh, on these portals, there are a lot of these questions that are very unique to the opportunity. And when you're answering yourself, you're also seeing how do I fit into a situation like this? Is my profile just black and white? Or
Mm.
am I also in the gray area that I can explore and see? So I would really challenge myself in writing these applications. And during that process, I would also work on my writing.
Mm.
The first point, even in the second point, I was also working on my first writing skills even then.
Mm.
And third is most definitely I'm blessed with a father who had a very transferable job, and that carried on eventually because I kept traveling. So traveling really, really shaped a lot of my learnings. And when I would travel, I would come back, write about these experiences, but write eventually. So traveling, putting yourself in spaces which you're not very comfortable, whether it is in a job application or whether it's a workshop, whether it's a fellowship, it really shaped me. And even attending a lot of these webinars and conferences, I would travel from a really one part of the city in Bangalore to another part of the city just to attend a panel discussion or like a book reading or a book launch, or to just go and watch a film that is being featured. So I think all a mix of all of these in different ways. That's something that I totally did, and today I can see how that has helped me.
Sure, absolutely, Shruti. So, moving on, your current role sits at the intersection of strategy communications, advocacy, and global health research. For parents who are listening, what does that kind of role mean in terms of real world impact, career stability, and the kind of organizations that people hire?
So firstly, it is an experience of working with the most intelligent people who find the most comfort in being humble with their development, with their growth at large. So you're constantly around meritorious, ambitious, and traveling, seeking information, very curious, but also people who are very humble in the way of life. So when you are in an organization like this, I think your job, in some sense, becomes very easy because all that you have to do is translate that work to anybody outside, a layman, or in the most easiest language that is possible, while the most tough work is already done by them. So I feel very fortunate to be at this intersection where my role is powered by the kind of brilliant work that my seniors are doing, and to take it to people like me, people who I was about 4 5 years ago, before I probably understood science communication at large. So it is a great kind of a bridge. It is like you're a pendulum. You're taking this information, you're going there, and in the meantime, you're synthesizing that information, making it more easier, more fun, more interesting, more also. Have the information to let that information have a longer shelf life in that sense. It is not blink and miss. So it is here to stay in different forms. So it is a fun place to be at. So.
Absolutely. Um, you've been a UNESCO ambassador, a US government state alumni, and a climate media fellow at TERI, TERI. Now, these are not small things. How did a journalist with a science communication background earn a seat at those tables? And what did the Science Foundation make possible that pure media training alone could not, Shruti?
So I think it is meeting people like you, or meeting people who are interested about others' journeys. Because in that process, I every time we recite our story, there is an opportunity hidden somewhere within there, within that conversation. Not something immediately, but eventually, when people see that there is some kind of some kind of a wealth or gem that you can mine here, people always come back to. So I feel like in every interaction that you have with people, it has to be authentic, it has to be more present, it has to be long lasting, it has to be intentional in that nature, because people do remember when they meet somebody that they want to remember. So in such conversations are these opportunities hidden. So in one of these conversations that I had with a very beautiful NGO founder in Bangalore, is when I was recommended for UNESCO's youth ambassador for a duration of about a year to promote one of their sustainable development goals. And it when it came, the opportunity came, it really seemed very dreamlike, because I never thought that all of these dream or organizations that I've always dreamt of can see me as an ambassador in itself. So it was a moment where I had to pinch myself and say that, hey, this has happened, and this happened because of someone else. So I'm extremely grateful for that kind of a network that believes in fueling others' journeys. So I would say, like, when you start authentically showing up for yourself and really be present when you talk to people, when you interact, and when you share with them your journeys, your struggles, your wishes, and what is it that you envision for the larger world, it always comes back in beautiful opportunities.
Absolutely, Shruti. It reminds me, I think you've actually pinged me and shared information of interviewing the greats, right? So can you share us what were you learning? How was it interviewing a lot of people at the high levels as such? Yeah.
Very nervous, sir. Firstly, you have that kind of a thought wherein you feel like, am I deserving enough to be interviewing this person?
Mm,
But I think the larger lesson over time, that comes up, that which even happened to me, is that you start believing that it is not the opportunity as much as what you make out of the opportunity that really matters.
mm,
So I had to meet the big person at their level to be able to question them the right questions, because eventually it is a power dynamic when you go and meet somebody,
mm,
and it is with your curiosity, it is with your kindness, it is with your maybe intelligence, it is with your interest in that person that you can, and also the subject, that you can really ask them to answer your questions and be also present in that process. So
mm.
for me, I think when I met some of the biggest names, I think first to be able to be confident of your own self
Get me
and
the
to be
names
able,
also, Anna Shruti.
sir.
Get me the names also. Who have you interviewed really? The topic.
uh, So beautiful, sir. Some I had the fortune of interviewing the legendary cricketer Brett Lee, United States Vice President Mr. Al Gore, Mr. Ratan Tata very briefly, Mr. Pullela Gopichand. I had to visit his center in Hyderabad, and I mean, these are the moments that really shaped you. I also had the when we go and report from the ground. I've interviewed farmers and Devdasi women, people who work with self-help groups, people who people who worked on Manrega, different schemes,
Mm,
farmers, women, women who are at the intersection of safety and poverty and employment, migration. I think all of these moments really shape you. It's not the stature as much as it is the kind of interaction you have with them, but all of these names most definitely.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you. Let's move to the Mythbusters, parental
Right.
projections. A couple of questions here. Now, the word journalism makes most Indian parents nervous. Unstable income, no clear ladder, no safe title. Is science communication actually a financially viable, professionally respected career in 2026 and beyond? Or is that fear based on a version of journalism that no longer exists, Shruti?
So professionally, it of course is a brilliant career to pursue. It is, like I said, it is a very dynamic career, and it is, I think, one of these oldest careers which has quietly been hidden under the larger noise of all other professions. So, of course, professionally, you will not be misguiding your child if you ask them to pursue science communication. But having said that, I think we should probably allow a child at least 5 years to not see any wealth coming from them, in that sense that it's going to transform you, because that burden of being wanting to uh, you know um, work at a place that's going to pay you really well is
Mm,
a little rare in a country like ours, because we are, of course, burdened by our own challenges of the kind of industry that we are. To be frank, a science communicator in other parts of the world would be paid far more bigger than a science communicator here in India. But
mm,
having said that, we are not here exporting our services. We are here working for our people,
yeah.
right? So our people are going to pay in the kind of money and value that they see. So you cannot compare science communication with software or with other kinds of careers, because the kind of deliverables are different
Mm,
at nature. So I think I would really urge parents to allow children some time after they've graduated to really figure out, because everybody, to be frank, everybody loves money. I'm
mm,
sure your child loves money, so allow him to find that time to be able to earn that money. If he understands where my strengths are, I'm pretty sure everybody will play to their strengths eventually. But that has to come within. It cannot come under pressure. It cannot come because a parent is screaming. It cannot come because the society is asking these questions. It will only come from within, and that will only come with time.
yeah.
So yeah, so we'll have to give our younger generation a bit of time, because the distractions that they have in today's times are so much more than what our parents and our grandparents had. So it's like a race, right? So when you're running, the more the distractions, the more time is going to take you to reach your destination. So that way, we'll have to just hang in and give them the time to find their meaning and find love in what they do.
Sure, Shruti. Now, many parents assume science communication is something you do after a real career. So, but you have been doing this at the highest levels for global organizations for over a decade. What would you say to the parent who thinks their child's passion for writing about science is a hobby and not a profession?
Absolutely not, sir. Like, if I take an example, today we're not talking about COVID. We spoke about COVID very real time, every day, every minute. That's how robust and dynamic science communication is. Every new developments are happening while we're eating, sleeping, chatting. Everything is good. Like, this world of science is constantly moving. So how can you do this later? How can today I talk about what it is to invent zero?
Yeah.
A man long ago did it and won laurels for it. So I think it has to be very up to date. If need be, you can be ahead. You cannot be behind for sure. So you can probably predict signs in a way that it is more futuristic. It is more upcoming. But you cannot do the otherwise. That is something. So that totally rules out that this profession can be pursued later in your life, because it's now or never in that sense. But parents, I think, like I said, sir, I think it is only time that is going to teach everyone, including us as children, if this is an option worth exploring or not. And we'll have to give each of us that kind of space to explore and see, and give that space to succeed and fail, most definitely, and eventually carve out something for yourself.
Perfect, Shruti. Let's also talk about the peer pressure directly. There'll be classmates, batchmates who went into engineering, climbed the corporate ladder, and start actually earning pretty good salaries to start with, from very different from yours at the same age. Now, how do you define success for yourself when the comparison was right in front of you? And what would you say to a 25-year-old today who loves science communication but is quietly losing confidence every time they attend a school reunion?
Right. So when I made this move, again, a very fortunate moment happened, that though I did not walk out of my college with a placement in hand, but I was one of the first people who started working. Of course, work at a very questionable place, at a very questionable salary, but that did not stop me from wanting to be one of those first people who gets up and goes for work every day. So I think sort of competition should also be diverse. You cannot always compare yourself with money. You can also be like, hey, who gets to travel in this particular job? If I get to travel and all my peers are going to be bound by their desk, then I am better off. But if I may be comparing my profession with everybody else's bank balance, then it is a very unfair kind of a filter in that sense. So you will have to diversify. Of course, your parents, your society will tell you that these are the only merits in which you judge success of a young graduate, but you'll have to find your own meaning in that sense. But having said that, I think I'm very happy for all my fellow friends and peers who've done really well for themselves. And I think by just being happy for each other, I think we really create a healthy space for constant, love and friendship that gets exchanged beyond all of these society set standards. Because because having said all of these they're all also my extended family, with whom I've spent 4 years of my precious life. So there is no such a competition. But I think even my friends, for that matter, a lot of my friends who were not in touch with me during my college days have come back, and have come back with so much more love and affection, that I'm, if anything, only grateful today on hindsight, that maybe every relationship has its own phase, and maybe this particular friendship phase is now. And now when it has arrived, it is beautiful in its own form. So I think it's time. It's the kind of attitude that we look at when you look at your friends, and it is also to diversify your own mindset and not to be limited by what people around you tell.
Sure, sure. You've sat across table from policymakers, researchers, and global health organizations. Did your lack of pure science postgraduate degree ever hold you back in rooms full of PhDs and scientists? And how did you hold your ground, sir?
Absolutely, sir, multiple times. In fact, I did have a phase where I would always start off asking anything with a sorry, that, hey, sorry, I do not come from a science background in that sense, but I still have a question. Or I would say that, hey, I come from a science background, but I am not a journalist. I'm not a senior journalist. I'm a very cub journalist. So can I have this, question? But I would always use that lack of knowing something to really set a welcoming ground for myself, then I would expect someone to cut me slack if my question would be stupid, because which is not very great, if I may confess, because I'm already apologizing before I would even express myself. But I think as a young person, I think I could only fight one battle. I could not be fighting two, three battles at the same time. So my larger agenda in that point would be to ask a question, or to probably get an entry into that room, to be able to sit there for a while, to really watch people. And I'm someone who's very curious in nature as a person. So all of these things to be talked with my curiosity at large really helped me. So I don't see, of course, I could have avoided these kind of disclaimers, but I think if anything, it's only returned back in a lot more than I gave. And it is returned back in kindness in that sense. So I'm happy about that apology.
Let's look at the roadmap and actionable steps. Even though there are three questions, I'll combine them. So if a student loves biology and writing, both data and storytelling, what's the most direct path into science communication in India? So let's look at programs, fellowships, organizations, which you can actually specifically name as starting points. That's one. You've worked across health, climate, technology, and policy. So which of these verticals is most in need of strong science communicators right now? And where do you see the biggest opportunity for someone starting out in the next 5 years? And finally, what's one fellowship, internship, or publication that you wish someone had pointed you to when you were 22 and just starting out?
Um, So there's, I mean, in my own experience, I have not had one particular organization or, piece of information that I was following, but I think I always loved reading newspaper.
Hmm.
So my information came, a lot of my learning came from newspaper, and of course, science journals. And science journals are a lot of them. Of course, the journals that are coming from outside the country, there's a very robust academic science reading that is outside India. And of course, you have these libraries that have access to a lot of these journals and reading material. One thing that I think I swear by is to have a library membership, whichever city that I live in. So I've always had a library membership since I was, I think, 13, 14. Just Books in Bangalore used to be my favorite hanging spot. I have written for multiple exams while sitting in Just Books reading, not the storybooks, but academic books, but just sitting inside a library. Even my college had a very brilliant library, and I spent a lot of my time in the college library. So I think being at the center of that information, and that could be anything. Like for me, it came from library. For a lot of people, it could come from internet, by being a part of these different groups that are in today's time, that are very famous, being a part of different communities within on Instagram or Snapchat, and all of these. There are different ways of forming communities. For me, it came from having a very simple access to a library in your city. Even today, I live in Delhi. I have a membership at a brilliant, one of the old country's oldest library, and I definitely visit it very often. Of course, these habits can be so much more better. I'm not at my best reading phase at the moment, but it is always something that I know I can control and explore. So I think from a place source of information, I think I would leave it to people to define that for themselves, and just have access to constant information in whichever way that you can.
Sure.
Uh,
The next
and about what's go on.
next one basically was on, you actually worked across health, climate, technology, and policy. So which of these verticals is most in need of strong science communicators right now, and where do you see the biggest opportunity for someone starting out in the next 5 years?
An intersection, sir.
Yeah.
Not one sector, but an intersection where you're able to bring in different learnings from different sectors, different challenges from different sectors, and put that together, fine tune it, and come up with a solution, come up with the need of the hour. So an intersection is the best way forward. I'm at an intersection. I work at an intersection of climate, environment, health, technology, women, gender, and so much more. Like I'm not even at an intersection. I'm at in a gallery, and I love being here. And I would recommend the same for everyone. Do not put all your eggs in one basket.
Mm,
Please diversify and have as many learnings of different sectors as possible, because that's the future. That's where we are all heading.
sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Now, in terms of fellowships, internships, or publications, Shruti, and we can actually add it maybe later on as part of the LinkedIn post as well. Something which you actually wish someone had pointed to you when you were early in your career, like
Right.
22 or so. Anything which comes to your mind, you can go ahead. Otherwise, we can add it at the end.
So I think growing up, my parents made sure that I never sit at home during my summer vacations,
Mm,
which largely meant that I did a lot of odd jobs that a young teenager would do in their free time, which is tutoring a younger student,
mm,
going working, and some your father's friend's office,
mm,
working as a junior something in a dance institute, or working as a reception. These are the things that I have actually done. So
mm,
for me, the learning came from all of these places, right? So the opportunities came from these places, which largely meant that when you're public facing at a very young age in your life, you are not dealing with one situation, you're dealing with multiple different kinds of situation. You're socially interacting, you're interacting with all kinds of diversified people. And in India, there is no dearth of diversity, right? So when you put yourself in a space like that, you learn a lot of things. And one of such an opportunity that I would really recommend is for the Teach for India Fellowship, wherein you are put in a remote school in one part of the country, where you work as a teacher after, of course, being trained as a teacher. You interact with the children who come from underserved sections of the society. And I know I have never pursued that fellowship, but I've interacted with a lot of people, and of course, the founder of the organization. And if there's something that I would recommend for everyone and for myself, that definitely would be the Teach for India Fellowship. A lot of fellowships transform you to a different university, give you the money, give you the push. But I think a fellowship like this really shapes you as a person very young in your life. It really questions your privileges. It questions everything that you aspire for, everything that you took for granted, all the challenges that probably you didn't celebrate enough.
mm.
So I think an opportunity like this, where you face people, young children, young minds, and are able to give them a good direction. I think it's a very fortunate space to be in. And if you ever have the opportunity, I would recommend a fellowship or any opportunity of that sort, wherein you are questioning your privileges, wherein you are there is no immediate gain. There is no monetary gain also. So
Sure.
I think a social space wherein, of course, there is a Teach for India fellowship also does not pay you a lot of money, but it pays you in so many ways that you are only later grateful for.
Absolutely, Shruti. Now, one question, rather a Monday morning homework to the parents as
Right.
such. If a parent is listening right now, still convinced that their child's love for science writing is not a career, what's the one organization name or one role title or one salary range you would give them to Google tonight that could actually make them think twice?
I think you can Google a happy child, your happy child. You could see, like in today's time, you can put a prompt and say, right? Like you can put a prompt and say, what will my child look if I allow that person, my child, to do everything that he or she wants to do? And
Mm,
you'll see a happy person. I think an opportunity like that. But if I can name any organization, I would be any organization that works in the social space, that again works. So I feel like, sir, I think charity or social service as um, as a sector always is pursued at the very end, fag end of your life when you are an older person. But that sector deserves young energy. So
Mm.
if you can channel your child's energy towards a social cause, towards a social organization where they get to go meet people and see what are the real life challenges and what is the definition of success and failure in the larger world, not something that we in our society is, so
Mm.
infamously talk about, but what is it, what is the essence of life, and that your child will only learn when he or she goes outside the comfort and
Mm.
sees what is it that's happening around. So I think an opportunity wherein they are able to get out of their comfort
Yeah.
would be great. I think only very recently I met the India head of um, India head of Helpage India.
Right.
So when I met her, it really brought back all the memories of the younger me, who in my school, we had these social campaigns wherein we were asked to go collect, money for us. For a tsunami, for a natural disaster, for to feed a couple of children, to the causes were so diverse, but we every year would go in during our summer vacations to collect money and to ask our neighbors to give 2 rupees, 5 rupees, 10 rupees, and write it on this, notebook that we had. That really shaped a lot of my personality. And today I am in such a space. Today I write proposals for funding. If anything, I am, doing the exact same thing that I was doing back then as a teenager. So these learnings will come back to really, really empower you. So I would say just don't think short term, think long term. And these are very life changing skill sets that your child will pick up when they go out of their comfort, and allow them that space to go out and explore and find the answers.
Sure, sure, Shruti. And the last one for the students as such, someone actually sitting with a biology textbook in one hand and a notebook full of ideas in another. What's the first step they should take this Monday morning to begin a life like yours?
Keep doing what you're doing. I think if you enjoy what you're doing, I think you already have won the battle. The money will follow, the fame, the laurels will follow, but happiness is very it's an internal job. And as long as you're happy, as long as you're at peace with yourself, and a lot of these professions, sir, they take time to prosper. Nobody, I mean, I never thought 10 years ago that I would be on a podcast with you explaining my story, but it is happening today while we're doing. Right. And similar kind of suspense and growth everybody deserves. And I really wish everyone who probably is exploring themselves lots of love and lots of best wishes. And if you're already in that journey to see what best I can do, you're already halfway through, and the rest you'll figure out.
Absolutely, Shruti. Lovely. Lovely talking to you. I think we covered your origin story and the kind of objections that parents and the society actually had in terms of what you've chosen
Right.
in terms of your career. We went down your career deep dive, the real work at UNESCO and as a US government state alumni and at TERI. You actually busted a lot of myths to the parents' objections. Quite a few actionable steps in terms of the roadmap for parents and students as such. So lovely talking to you. I think science communicator as a career is pretty good. And as you very rightly signed off, we need to give a bit more of time for each of our children to actually struggle, fail, and learn from their own journeys and then map their own career paths as such. Anything else you want to say before we sign off?
Absolutely not, sir. I think I have I have said everything, but I'm just happy that we are in today's time having conversations like these, and we are able to make space for people who are not defined but are here to define themselves. So very happy to be a part of such a conversation, and I wish you all the luck in everything that you want to do, sir.
Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to your incentives post this podcast. So please make a list of things which didn't really go very well. I think they really went well and stuff. I'm also learning a lot for each of the
Right.
podcasts. So thanks a lot for the time. I'll be in touch and I'll pull you back again for another topic. Sudhi, thanks so much.
Lovely, sir. Thank you so much, sir. See you around.
See you.
Bye, sir.
Thank you.